Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining a presentation today. This is Nutrition for Managing Arthritis, and my name is Ryann Prilliman. I'm one of the dietitians and nutritionists with My Health Onsite from the wellness team. We appreciate you being here. We're going to talk a little bit about the content of the presentation, and there will be a section at the end for questions that you'll be able to type in the chat box. So just to have an overview, we're going to cover the arthritis facts, the different types of common arthritis conditions. We're going to review some foods to avoid and then get into some foods to include, as well as some herbs and spices that are beneficial for individuals with arthritis. And then we'll cover some dietary guidelines for the three most common sources of arthritis conditions. So arthritis is very common, but it's not very well understood. We do know that arthritis is a common term for over 100 types of diseases affecting the joint and affecting joint pain. It does affect over 50 million adults and unfortunately over 300,000 children. Common symptoms include swelling, pain, and decreased range of motion. Symptoms commonly can come and go. Sometimes they're mild at times, and other times it can be more severe. The pain can increase over time, leading to chronic pain, difficulty doing activities of daily living, even walking up and down stairs. It may also cause permanent joint damage, and it's something that is an ongoing thing to treat and manage, but today I hope to share with you some tips and food sources for helping decrease the inflammation so that your quality of life is a little bit more improved and the inflammation is kept to a minimum. So the most common types of arthritis are listed here, with osteoarthritis being the most common. Osteoarthritis is a degenerative disease, and we'll talk more about that in a second. Rheumatoid arthritis and psoriatic arthritis are both autoimmune disorders. Gout is a condition where uric acid crystals accumulate in a joint, and the initial pain is typically felt in a big toe, and then it can move up into the foot or the ankle joint. Fibromyalgia is associated with widespread musculoskeletal pain. And there are some other common ones, including ankylosing spondylitis, which affects the spine. Childhood arthritis is a common one, as well as lupus. And there's many, many other ones too. But for today's presentation, we're going to focus on dietary guidelines for the most common sources of arthritis. So osteoarthritis, being the most common type, is the degenerative type of arthritis, which means this is caused by just the wear and tear of daily life. Bones eventually start rubbing against each other when the protective cartilage in between has worn away. The most common areas for this pain accumulates in the hips, the low back, the knees, and the feet, and pain is typically felt within the first 30 minutes of movement. Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disorder, and it's characterized by the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines, including interleukin-17, as well as interleukin-1 beta, interleukin-6, and TNF-alpha, which is something called tumor necrosis factor. And these pro-inflammatory cytokines from the research show that they play a pathological role in the development of rheumatoid arthritis. It is a disease that causes the immune system to attack synovial membranes in your joints. It is one of the more common types of arthritis. And if left untreated or if inflammation continues, it can lead to damage of the joint, and the inflammation can eventually affect other organs such as the nerves, the eyes, the skin, the lungs, and the heart. So the goal when you have arthritis is to work towards a healthy weight and maintain a healthy weight and control your blood sugar. We know that being overweight makes osteoarthritis worse because having extra weight that you're carrying around puts extra pressure on your joints. We also know that many people that have osteoarthritis also have diabetes. So having high glucose levels we know makes cartilage stiffer and more likely to break down over time. Having diabetes causes inflammation in general, which also weakens cartilage. So it's imperative to really make sure that your lifestyle choices, what you eat and drink, and how you move your body are helping you work towards achieving that healthy weight and controlling your blood sugar. So for that reason, we really want to work towards having a nutrition plan that includes lots of color, fiber-rich carbohydrates, heart-healthy fats and lean proteins. Your nutrition plan should be low in highly processed foods, foods that are high in sodium, high in added sugar, high in saturated fats, and hopefully avoid and free of trans fats. Some foods may exacerbate pain in one person and may not in another person. So keeping a food log can help you identify if there's specific culprits that worsen your pain as compared to others. So that way you can go back and review trends with your diet history and your symptoms. So the foods to limit is what we're going to start with. The standard American diet, SAD is known as our acronym, the SAD diet, is high in refined carbohydrates, high in processed sugars, and as depicted here in the picture, your typical burger, fries, and sugary drink is very pro-inflammatory. We've researched these foods, we've researched how their impact on the body accumulates, and we know that refined carbohydrates, including white bread, pastries, and other types of refined carbs, white pasta, crackers, things like that, can cause inflammation, as well as other fried foods. So not just French fries, but fried fish, fried chicken, anything that's deep fried, which includes donuts as well. All types of sugary beverages, including soda, sweet tea, lemonade, energy drinks, sports drinks, sugary coffee drinks. Sugar in general is pro-inflammatory. So you want to keep the sugar content down to a minimum. These are different than naturally occurring sugars. So these sugars that are added to foods or added to beverages are what we're talking about here. We also want to limit red meat that comes from, cuts of steak or ground beef made into burgers, other types of processed red meat, which includes hot dogs, sausages, and bacon, because those have been found to be pro-inflammatory. Margarine, shortening, lard, which is typically found in pastries and pie crusts and cookies and other baked goods, are pro-inflammatory as well. And gluten is an iffy one. If you have an autoimmune disorder, which maybe it's psoriatic arthritis, maybe it's rheumatoid arthritis, definitely if you have celiac disease, you're not going to be able to tolerate gluten. Gluten is a protein found in wheat and other grains and has been linked to inflammation for people with celiac disease or a gluten sensitivity. So you might want to test gluten to see if it triggers you or if it causes more inflammation or more pain. An elimination diet can help you discover if it is a problem for you. So that would mean taking gluten products out of your diet completely for maybe 2 or 3 weeks and tracking your symptoms. And then at the end of the removal period, you would add it back in and pay attention to your symptoms. If you notice that symptoms improve and there's less of them, less pain without gluten, and then more dramatic symptoms when you add it back in, it's probably a good idea to avoid gluten going forward. And if you need help with identifying food sources with gluten, getting in touch with your registered dietitian can certainly help with that. So now we're going to move on to foods to include. You may have heard of the Mediterranean style diet. It's been associated with being very anti-inflammatory. So I'm going to review the best foods from that style of eating or that diet that have the most anti-inflammatory properties. So these are going to be foods that you're going to want to eat more often, include regularly, whether it's daily or weekly if possible. Studies have shown that including salmon or other foods that are really rich in omega-3 fatty acids, specifically the EPA and DHA, can help reduce C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, which are two pro-inflammatory proteins in your body. So the best sources would be listed here: salmon, sardines, mackerel, herring, and tuna. There are other sources of seafood that have varying amounts, smaller amounts. So most of the seafood sources are beneficial, but these are the best ones that have the most amount per serving size. And if you absolutely hate seafood or if you're allergic to it, you can get the fish oil supplements. You can choose just make sure it's EPA, DHA, omega-3 supplements, which is usually fish oil or krill oil or algae oil. We have been shown in the research to have improvements when you take fish oil supplements as it pertains to reducing joint and swelling in the joints, joint pain, duration of morning stiffness has been decreased, and disease activity among people who have rheumatoid arthritis. If you do go the supplement route as a part of like a daily routine, look for 600 to 1,000 milligrams of fish oil daily, because that's been shown to ease the joint pain and the tenderness and the swelling. And you'll want to make sure that your supplement is a good quality supplement, something that maybe doesn't have a lot of mercury or other contaminants, something that's been tested by a third party to make sure that it actually contains what they're promising on the label, just because the supplement industry is not regulated by the FDA. So moving on, we have colorful fruits is next on our foods to include list. Colorful fruits are rich with antioxidants and polyphenols, and the darker or more brilliant the color, the more antioxidants it has. It's a good idea to vary up your choices so you get a wide variety of different phytochemicals and phytonutrients, vitamins and minerals, but these ones listed here have the highest amount. Blueberries being the top one, blackberries, strawberries, cherries, and apples as well. Apples are actually one of the best sources of quercetin, which is a polyphenol that fights arthritis by decreasing some of these inflammatory compounds in the body. Next on our list of foods to include is citrus foods. Citrus fruits that contain lots of vitamin C can be very beneficial for those with arthritis because research shows getting enough vitamin C aids in preventing inflammatory arthritis and maintaining healthy joints. Fun fact, oranges contain hesperidin, which is a flavonoid that has anti-inflammatory properties. So you'll want to make sure to include these on a regular basis. There are some vegetables that are rich sources of vitamin C too, which would be like bell peppers as an example. If you think that this is something that you're not consuming on a daily basis, it could be beneficial to make sure that you supplement with vitamin C. Most multivitamins will have a good amount of vitamin C, but it's important to check the RDA and make sure there's 100% of the RDA listed for vitamin C if you're not getting some of these foods in your diet regularly. Next on our list is dark leafy greens. Dark green veggies are a great source of vitamin K. The best food sources for these would be spinach and kale, other collards and other greens, broccoli, and cabbage. It's been shown in the research that these foods dramatically reduce inflammatory markers in the blood. So we should aim to have something green every single day if possible. Next up on the list is nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds are rich with antioxidants. Multiple studies have confirmed that the role of nuts in an anti-inflammatory diet are very beneficial. One study found that over a 15-year period, men and women who consumed the most nuts had a 51% lower risk of dying from an inflammatory disease like rheumatoid arthritis, compared with those who ate the fewest nuts. Another study found that subjects with lower levels of vitamin B6, which is found in most nuts, had higher levels of inflammatory markers. So it is important to include nuts on a regular basis. Some of the best sources of these vitamin B6 and anti-inflammatory compounds are almonds, walnuts, pistachios, and pine nuts. Pistachios contain polyphenols and carotenoids, which consists of lutein and zeaxanthin, which may lower inflammation and boost the body's antioxidant defense mechanism. Next on our list is olive oil. Most people think about olive oil and salmon, the good fats, when it comes to thinking about the Mediterranean diet or the anti-inflammatory diet. And it's important because olive oil is very rich with monounsaturated fat, which is very heart healthy, and it contains something called oleocanthal. Oleocanthal has properties similar to non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, or also known as NSAIDs. Oleocanthal inhibits the activity of COX enzymes with a pharmacological action similar to ibuprofen. So it has powerful ability to reduce the perception of pain. Inhibiting COX enzymes dampens the body's inflammatory processes and reduces pain sensitivity. If you are looking to include olive oil in your diet, look for cold press extra virgin olive oil. There's usually two different ways, or the two most common ways, to extract olive oil from the olives. And one is a chemical process, and the other one is a more natural process where they just squeeze it in a chilled environment. So that's where they get the cold pressed extra virgin olive oil name from. Alternatives would be avocado oil. Avocado oil has a higher smoke point, so it might be beneficial to use avocado oil if you are cooking at higher heat temperatures. Olive oil is fantastic. It's very versatile, and you can use it on things like salads and drizzling it on top of your proteins, your starches, your vegetables. You can even cook with it at low to moderate heat temperatures. But at a certain point, maybe medium heat or beyond, it does start to smoke because it's very delicate. And here's where it might be beneficial to switch to a more heat-stable oil if you do plan to do some baking in the oven at high temperatures or cooking something on the frying pan at higher temperatures. Avocado oil is definitely more stable. It is more widely available, and you can even get it now in avocado cooking spray. Flaxseed oil is another oil that's heart healthy. It's got omega-3s in it, but not the same kind of omega-3s as the fatty fish do. The body unfortunately cannot convert the ALA omega-3s found in flax seeds to the EPA and DHA, which have more of an anti-inflammatory benefit, but flaxseed has still been shown to have many helpful properties too, and it's a good healthy oil. Next up on our list is beans. Beans are rich with phytonutrients. Phytonutrients help lower C-reactive protein, which, as I mentioned, is an indicator of inflammation found in the blood. It's something that providers can test for and see what your levels are to make sure they're in the normal range or if they're a little bit too high. They contain antioxidant and anti-inflammatory compounds. And these three beans rank among the U.S. Department of Agriculture's top 4 antioxidant-containing foods, with wild blueberries taking the number 2 spot. So definitely a good reason to try to get more of the beans in your diet, specifically these ones if you like them. All beans have good beneficial things to provide for our health. They're a great source of fiber per serving. They're inexpensive and they've got protein. They have very slow digesting carbohydrates, which is good for blood sugar management and good for satiety, keeping full. But if you enjoy red beans, the small red beans, which are different from red kidney beans, and pinto beans, try to incorporate these more often into your meals. You can mix them with some rice. You can add them on top of salads. You can leave them as a standalone side. They're very versatile, but we should definitely try to get more beans more often in our diet. Next on our list is whole grains. Whole grains, just like beans, are a great source of fiber, and we know that fiber has lots of good benefits as far as lowering our cholesterol. It does help us stabilize our blood sugar. So when you're eating carbohydrates that have a good source of fiber, our body is going to turn the carbohydrates into sugar at a slower pace, which is really good for individuals with diabetes trying to control their blood sugar. Also very good for people who are trying to prevent diabetes. We know that fiber can help you stay full longer, which can help you maintain a healthy weight by limiting mindless snacking and getting hungry too soon. Some studies have also shown that fiber and fiber-rich foods can lower blood levels of the C-reactive protein, that inflammatory marker I keep mentioning. Some of the best sources of fiber include oats. You can make oatmeal with, or you can add it to smoothies, brown rice, quinoa, and whole wheat flour if you can tolerate that gluten. If you are sensitive to gluten, you might want to stick with more of the oats, the brown rice, the quinoa, and maybe other sources of like even starchy vegetables, the beans and stuff for your fiber sources. All right, so next we have a category where you might want to test this yourself because here's where it's going to vary person to person. The nightshade vegetables include tomatoes, eggplants, red bell peppers, and potatoes. So these are typically nutritious foods. They are rich with nutrients. They are disease-fighting powerhouses that have minimal calories. So for the average person, it's great to include. Some experts believe that these vegetables contain a potent nutrient mix that helps inhibit arthritis pain. However, they also contain this chemical called solanine. Solanine has been branded as the culprit in arthritis pain. So even though there's no scientific evidence to suggest that nightshades trigger arthritis flares, some people report symptom relief when they avoid these nightshade vegetables. So I definitely recommend that you test this for yourself. If you notice that your arthritis pain flares after eating them, consider eliminating all the nightshade vegetables from your diet for a few weeks to see if it makes a difference. And then slowly add them back into your diet, maybe one by one, and see what happens. Does your pain increase again, or does it stay the same? If you notice a difference, then it might be worth avoiding the nightshade vegetables. If there's no difference and you really, really love tomatoes or potatoes, you might be able to keep them in your diet without sacrificing a variety of foods. So moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about herbs and spices. There's a lot of good stuff here. You probably are aware of turmeric, that golden spice color that gives curry its yellow orangish color. Curcumin is the component in turmeric that has lots of benefits to our body. Number one, it's anti-inflammatory, but it's also antimicrobial, it's insecticidal, it's anti-mutagenic, it's radioprotective, and it has anti-cancer properties. The downside is our body has a hard time absorbing turmeric. There might be like a 3% absorption rate. So we have found out that if you include black pepper, it enhances absorption. So if you're cooking with turmeric, throw in some black pepper too for some extra seasoning, and that's going to help your body use the turmeric the way it should be and help you get all those amazing benefits from it. Black pepper on its own has been found to attenuate inflammatory response associated with arthritis, even by itself. But even better that these two work together because we know that the black pepper helps the absorption of turmeric. So if you don't love these spices and don't cook with them often, you can even look for a supplement that has curcumin with the piperine, which is the component of black pepper. And I have seen them, they're available over the counter where you can get curcumin supplements with that. It'll either say black pepper or piperine on it. And that way you know you're going to be able to get a double whammy of anti-inflammatory benefits from both those spices, and you get it all in one supplement. Cinnamon does fight arthritis by decreasing some of those interleukin inflammatory cytokines. Interleukin 2 and 4 are typically reduced when people consume cinnamon. Too much of anything is not necessarily good, and this is the case for cinnamon. Too much cinnamon can be toxic to us. So it's ideal to limit to 1 teaspoon per day. Black cumin contains something called thymoquinone, and that has been shown to possess anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and chemopreventive activities for individuals with both osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Cardamom appears to increase antioxidant status and decrease markers of inflammation in the body. Ginseng and its active compounds called ginsenosides appear to reduce the inflammatory markers, specifically interleukin 6 and TNF alpha, which is the tumor necrosis factor alpha. And then moving on to our herbs, which some of these can be known as spices or used as spices too, but they technically fall in the herb category. So green tea, we've heard of for its many anti-cancer benefits, contains many polyphenols. One of the most popular ones being the epigallocatechin 3-gallate, which is EGCG. And EGCG in green tea appears to be beneficial for those with osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Rosemary contains something called ursolic acid, which fights rheumatoid arthritis by decreasing something called prostaglandin E2, which is a pro-inflammatory mediator. Thyme contains carvacrol, which decreases something called myeloperoxidase, and that is an enzyme that contributes to tissue damage during inflammation. Saffron contains something called crocin, which helps those with rheumatoid arthritis by decreasing the inflammatory compounds, again, TNF alpha, interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6 as well. Ginger and garlic are both anti-inflammatory. Garlic contains something called diallyl sulfide, which helps those with osteoarthritis. Garlic can be especially helpful for those with ankylosing spondylitis, which is that arthritis that affects the spine. Sesame contains sesamin, which has been beneficial for individuals with osteoarthritis. Fennel helps fight inflammation as well. And the list goes on. Honorable mention probably goes to clove, fenugreek, and even onions. They all are great in fighting inflammation, but these ones listed here have been researched and proven by direct mechanisms in our body to decrease inflammation, which that's what we're trying to fight. We're trying to decrease inflammation because inflammation is what leads to our pain. And when we have pain, we're less likely to move. And when we don't move, that can lead to further degradation of our health and our body and our muscles. So get creative in the kitchen. Try to use some new herbs and spices to try to add more flavor to your dish. The benefit for using lots of these herbs and spices is that maybe, hopefully, you won't need as much sodium, which is kind of like our go-to seasoning of choice or flavor enhancer. But we also know that too much of the sodium is going to increase our blood pressure. So get creative, try out some new herbs and spices, and you'll reap some anti-inflammatory benefits in the process. So next we're going to look at some dietary recommendations for some of the most common arthritis conditions. For osteoarthritis, which is the most common arthritis condition that we have here, the Mediterranean diet is kind of like the gold standard for osteoarthritis. And I've gone through, we've looked at all like the benefits from these components. So I'm going to give you the serving size recommendations for each one. It's recommended for the fatty fish, 2 servings of 3 to 4 ounces of fatty fish per week. Again, if you don't want to take the fish, you can do a daily supplement of somewhere between 600 to 1,000 milligrams of fish oil or EPA, DHA, rich omega-3 fatty acids. The recommendation is 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables daily. That's a lot. Most people are not getting that intake. And this is part of the daily dietary recommendations for most adults anyway, but we definitely fall short in this category. So if you're sitting down to eat a snack or breakfast or lunch or dinner, make sure there's as much color as possible, and that's going to help you reach that goal. We've already reviewed the many benefits of brightly colored fruits and veggies, so do your best to try to incorporate them into your diet more on a daily basis, and that way, week after week, you're accumulating more of these inflammation-fighting fruits and veggies and produce options. For the nuts, it's recommended to aim for 1.5 ounces per day, which equates to about 1.5 handfuls per day. Nut butter, if it's natural and minimally processed, not a lot of additives to it, would also count too. So if you enjoy almond butter, that counts. If it's peanut butter, make sure it's a natural peanut butter that doesn't have that partially hydrogenated oil in it. For olive oil, the recommendation is 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil daily. And for beans, it'd be 1 cup of beans twice a week. Beans can be a little rough on the digestive system, so if you want to spread this out and do maybe half a cup 4 times a week, that's usually a little bit more appropriate for many people. And then if you're doing for the whole grains, 6 ounces of whole grains daily is recommended. A study published in 2016 in the American Society of Nutrition reported that the Mediterranean or anti-inflammatory diet led to healthy weight loss, lower rates of diabetes, lower rates of heart disease, lower rates of fractures, as well as less arthritis-related pain, less disability, less depression, and a better overall quality of life. So you can see why a lot of people are pointing towards this style of eating. Whether or not it's exactly what they eat over in the Mediterranean, it's some of the best practices from that region of the world. And it's been one of the most widely researched diets for not just arthritis, but for many, many conditions, just for weight, for blood sugar, for heart disease, for cancer, a lot of stuff. So a really go-to one. And thankfully, because of its popularity, you can search for Mediterranean recipes and you'll get a lot of options for different kind of cuisines and dishes that you can make that include all of these things, all these components. So next we're going to talk about an interesting diet that was adapted from the Mediterranean diet, specifically designed for people with rheumatoid arthritis. It's a little bit more specific. There was a doctor that spent 1 year kind of working on this diet to really kind of adapt the components of the Mediterranean for people with the autoimmune version of arthritis, rheumatoid specifically. And these are the components she came up with. You start off your day with a homemade green drink that includes green vegetables and fruit every morning. You still have the same oily or fatty fish, whether it's sardines or salmon or tuna, at least twice a week. So that recommendation is the same. A high daily intake of monounsaturated fatty acids, which includes that olive oil, includes avocado, nuts, sesame seeds, or sesame butter, which is known as tahini. She recommends daily chia seeds and flaxseed oil. Chia seeds can be incorporated into smoothies. I like to put it in my oatmeal. And I also like to make chia pudding, where you take a little bit of chia seeds. There's plenty of recipes online if you're curious and want to try it for yourself. You take some chia seeds and mix it with a little bit of almond milk or a regular milk or a milk alternative of your choice, and you let it set. You mix it all together and let it sit in the fridge, and it kind of creates this like yogurt pudding type of texture. And you can eat it that way as a topping or just as is. Some people use it as like an ingredient in a parfait, mix it with berries and stuff like that. You can get creative with it. But that's some of the ways you can use chia seeds. She also recommends unsweetened yogurt and miso, which is a fermented soybean paste. Fruits that are high in enzymes, such as pineapple and papaya. So pineapple contains an enzyme called bromelain, and papaya contains an enzyme called papain. These are beneficial in breaking down really tough meats. I've seen these ingredients in meat tenderizer. I've seen these digestive enzymes added to digestive health supplements. I've seen them added to protein powders when they boast digestive, support. It's usually just the enzymes from these two fruits, the bromelain and papain. So she decided just making sure that you have fruits that are the brightly colored ones that we talked about, but also including the ones that have the beneficial digestive enzymes, pineapple and papaya. She recommends daily green tea, as you know why, and turmeric used with the black pepper for the better absorption, and ginger. So this diet, she actually did an experiment. She took 22 highly motivated patients with doctor-diagnosed rheumatoid arthritis, and they followed this diet called the ITIS diet for 2 weeks. They continued taking prescribed medications during the study. Half of them experienced a 50% improvement in pain and swelling, as well as in subjective measures such as fatigue, often in just as little as 3 or 4 days. They were already feeling better. A few patients in this study went into complete remission. Actually, everyone felt better in the end, whether they went into remission or had that 50% pain, or even if they didn't have improvement in pain, they all felt better in general and had more energy and less fatigue. So if you're motivated and you have rheumatoid arthritis, it might be worth trying it out for yourself. And if it's really restrictive or if it's difficult for you, at least picking some of these components to adopt into your regular routine might be worth trying out. And like I said, if you can record your symptoms, see if you can tell a difference. It might be worthwhile if you do notice improvements for yourself to keep these healthy habits going. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about gout. It's a little bit different. As I mentioned, gout is a painful form of arthritis that occurs when high levels of uric acid in the blood cause these crystals to form and accumulate in and around a joint. So gout dietary guidelines are pretty same in general as far as working towards an anti-inflammatory diet. The one big difference is you got to be very careful about the proteins. Lean proteins like fish and chicken are fine, but in moderation, because animal proteins tend to be high in something called purines, and that can increase the uric acid in the blood and in the joints. So we want to stick with a low purine diet, which means we got to limit the amount of protein you consume. So the recommendation is 4 to 6 ounces per day for the lean proteins. So that's not much. If you look at the palm of your hand, that's about 3 ounces, which is the size of a deck of playing cards. You could do 3 ounces at lunch of some chicken, maybe 3 ounces at dinner of some fish, and then that's it. It does also include some other things like the low-fat dairy and non-dairy products. Fresh fruits are beneficial, we know why, but cherries specifically, there is some evidence that eating cherries is associated with a reduced risk of gout attacks. So that might be one to kind of frequent more often when you're, creating your grocery list or stopping by the grocery store. We know the benefits of increasing a wide variety of vegetables, so that's recommended, the nuts in the nut butter, whole grains, and vitamin C may help lower uric acid levels, even more so than what's recommended in the RDA, which is the recommended dietary allowance per person per day. It might be beneficial to talk with your doctor about whether a 500 milligram vitamin C supplement might be worthwhile to try out if it fits within your diet and your medication plan. There is some research that says it might be beneficial in lowering those uric acid levels. Also, some research suggests that drinking coffee in moderation might help reduce the risk of gout too. If you do have a gout flare-up, you definitely want to avoid a lot of those really high purine-rich foods, which again, I mentioned were more so of the animal meats. So red meat particularly, lamb, pork, organ meats, shellfish, shrimp, lobster, and sardines. We know sardines were good with the omega-3s, but if you have gout and you have a flare-up, probably best to stay away just for the time being. We know alcohol is a big trigger, so avoiding beer, wine, grain alcohol, good idea. High fructose corn syrup. The fructose can be problematic, but specifically the high fructose corn syrup. So fruit juices, sodas, sugary cereals, store-bought processed foods, baked goods, ice cream, and candy. These are things that most likely have the high fructose corn syrup and can really worsen a flare-up. So if you're trying to get through a flare-up and help it calm down more quickly, you'll definitely want to avoid all these foods as much as possible. All right, so that kind of concludes some of the dietary guidelines to have a healthy diet and a healthy life, and hopefully specific things that you've been able to take away from specific arthritis conditions. Here's some of the resources that I used and pulled from. Lots of good stuff online too, but I know sometimes it can be very overwhelming when it comes to all the research and varying conflicting nutrition information that's online. So if you do need a little bit of support and are confused, reach out to your dietitian. We can work with you one-on-one to help you figure out a plan that's going to work for you. I will open it up for questions at this time. So if you'd like, you can pull up your chat box. When you type in a question, it defaults to go towards everyone in the group so everyone can see your question. If you don't feel comfortable with that and want to stay anonymous, that's fine too. You're welcome to change the everyone and address it to My Health Onsite so that I can see it and I can address your question. So as I wait to see if anyone has questions, just remember that dietitians and individuals on their wellness team, we have a team of registered nurses as well, certified health coaches. We have 30 wellness programs plus that are free for you to engage in. We kind of customize a plan for you. I know it can be a little overwhelming, especially if you have other conditions that you're managing besides arthritis. So if you're trying to juggle it all and figure out what foods to eat, I would definitely reach out to a dietitian because we can help with that. We can help you figure out how to juggle it all, find a nutrition plan that's going to work for you and work for your body. Don't forget to schedule that annual blood draw so that you can make sure that you're in good health. If there's any concerns, we can address it right away. If there are concerns, I mean, your doctor can even test for things like C-reactive protein, which is that inflammatory marker in the blood. So it's a good thing to kind of keep in touch with your doctor, make sure you're returning for regular checkups, and hopefully you can take advantage of our wellness programs, and also maybe some future presentations as well. So I appreciate you guys being here. I hope you got a lot out of it. So far, I don't see anyone in the chat. So, oh, we do have one request. Could you show your source slide again? I'd like to read up on it. Sure. Yeah, I'll leave it right there. Hang on one moment. Yeah, so one of them is like a research article with all the spices and herbs. I usually look for credible sources. So Harvard Health was a great one. Arthritis.org has a lot of information, especially if you have a specific type of arthritis. You can go to www.arthritis.org, and there's a lot of great information there. Dietary guidelines, things like that. Very good stuff. If you have gout, gouteducation.org is a great one. Mayo Clinic is very helpful too. You're welcome. All right, so I don't see any questions. I will stay on in case someone is trying to type in a question for a little bit, but I do thank you guys for joining today. You take care and let us know if you need anything going forward. We're happy to assist in any way possible. Thank you.